Hey, welcome to the channel. We hope that you enjoy today's stories and check out the chapters on the video to see all the stories for today. But before we get into this video, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to get notified when we release a new video. So let's get into the video.
My dog sees things, and I can't see them. Okay, so my boyfriend and I live in a mobile home with 2 dogs. The dog I'm going to tell you about it, Layla. We live on a dead-end road surrounded by funeral homes, and there's a cemetery adjacent to our backyard about 10 feet away. When we first moved into our house, we only had 1 dog, Layla. Trailer houses are typically set up with 2 bedrooms on one end of the house and the master on a separate side. There is a narrow hallway on the right side of our house that has 2 guest rooms and a bathroom. We never go on that side of the house. Layla would constantly stare down the hallway with her hackles raised. She did this for the first 2 to 3 months we lived there. After a while, she did stop, and honestly, we forgot she did it up until recently. After that, we would hear strange noises around the house, and I have tried to discredit it as the squirrels outside or just random stuff. Since it is a trailer home, the floor is weird and certain spots along the home groan loudly if you step on them. Recently, I was in bed, and it was around 3 a.m. My boyfriend was asleep, and I was up, insomnia, and I heard the floor groan outside of our door. The floor has to be stepped on to make noise, and both of the dogs go into the kennel for bed. I panicked and woke up my boyfriend, and he told me I was being weird and went back to sleep. Following that, there was one night I was up doing homework. I'm a college student, in bed, and my boyfriend was away at a football game. We had just gotten our new dog, and he was in the room with me. Layla was in her kennel, and I heard her yelp like something had hurt her, followed by growling. In her defense, she wouldn't hurt a fly, so it was strange hearing her react like that. A few months ago, my high school friend came up and stayed with us for a weekend. She stayed in the very last guest bedroom with her boyfriend, and she told me on the last night, the door to their room opened slowly and then slammed shut. It scared them so much that they almost moved into the living room for the night. Now, earlier today I was in the middle guest room because so keep my pianos in there, and I was practicing a piece. I turned my phone on to record myself and left the door open so the dogs could come in as they pleased. Layla came in for a second, then stood in the doorway with her hackles up and staring down the hall. I stopped playing and was trying to get her attention. She refused to listen to me, and I noticed I was still recording. I grabbed my phone and turned it on to her. Right as I did, you can see her in the video following something that moved down the hall, past the room and back. It scared the crap out of me, and I took them and went into my bedroom and locked the door. I know dogs are able to see things we can't sometimes, but that was something else. She literally followed it, her entire head moved. Is there something I could use to cleanse my house? That entire back area just gives off a negative feeling. Have any of you guys experienced where your dogs knew something was off first? Maybe I'm being crazy, but I don't have anyone to tell this to that wouldn't laugh at me. Anything helps.
My paranormal experiences are getting more intense. Hi, I have been able to notice energies and maybe even see spirits since I was a small child. Today was my breaking point. This happened less than 10 minutes ago. I was laying down, facing my wall with my back to the room. My dad was on his way to the car and about to leave and go to my aunt. All of a sudden, I feel the heat and pressure of a human hand slither onto my bed and touch about right where my waist is. I look back and there is nothing. Things like this happen to me more frequently now, and I am not upset that there are things like this getting close to me, but it doesn't sit well with me that these spirits feel comfortable getting close to me. Another story was a few months ago. I used to religiously sleep with a mirror facing my bed, and I knew this was wrong. So, one day I just turned the mirror around and go to sleep, and the energy in the room immediately shifted, but I thought that was good and went to sleep. Around 5 a.m., I heard the door open and close in my sleep. I thought it was one of my siblings just checking on me or something. I open my eyes 20 minutes or so later to an entity that looks exactly like me, but the eyes are enlarged by a mile. I was not particularly scared, but it was maybe 2 inches away from my face as I was laying on the edge of the bed and I could see its hands holding onto the edge. As soon as it realized I saw it, it quickly moved out of my sight, but I couldn't move my eyes. Then it peeped into the frame again just to make sure and left. I heard some rummaging in my room as if it was looking for something. Then when I could look, I saw it standing where my mirror used to be and it looked disfigured, but it looked like me. It had my clothes on and its limbs were bent, and it was frantic for some reason. I went back to sleep and woke up and did not remember this until midday and I started freaking out. I think this was what they call a mimic spirit. I never feel alone. I only see these things or feel like something is with me when I am alone or when I am alone and it's night. Especially in the car. When I am on FaceTime, I feel safe, but when I am on regular calls, I still feel a weight on me. There is always something watching, and I feel like I'm the only one that notices. Even in hotels? I feel like it's not just me or something that is always with me. I don't know what to do. I don't want this to continue into college or something. I'm not scared of anything and never will be, I just am very confused and wonder if anyone has ever experienced this. Do you like listening to these stories? Do you want to hear more of them? Then click that like button, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. And check the description for links to more videos and interesting stories.
We bought a 98-year-old house and we're hoping it is not haunted. My wife and 5 kids moved into this old farmhouse in May of 2022. It sits on 8 acres of farmland and is surrounded by more farmland. The house has changed owners a lot. That had me a little worried, but it's been peaceful, so I've even commented recently that it seems we don't have any haunting issues. Then this happened. This morning my wife witnessed a tube of chapstick spin like a top on the linoleum kitchen floor. I heard it spinning. It was spinning fast. It sounded mechanical, it was so fast. It sounded like a motor running. Prior to this, the only thing was my oldest son thought he heard voices in the barn, but he was riding a quad/4-wheeler in the field and passing by the barn. I discounted this. We have lots of animals, including cats and dogs. There's not been any weirdness other than this one event. It's always seemed peaceful here and we have gotten comfortable living here. I'm worried about any type of escalation. Okay, the lights in the downstairs bathroom and the master closet flicker a lot and the bathroom ones burn out. That may just be a wiring issue and I've been worried about that. One more thing, my wife's best friend and her husband were sleeping in the shop, and he was leaving through the man's door and said he felt something grab his arm and pull him back in. We figured that since their house was experiencing odd things like that, it was something attached to him and not our house. I bought a bundle of sage at a Navajo store in New Mexico a while back. I guess we might use it. I'm actually a little worried it might stir things up. We may just have to learn to live with whatever this is.
Weird creature in South Carolina mountains. Been a fan of this sub for a while, figured I should go ahead and share my own story. This took place last year, at the beginning of summer. I was with my mom, headed down to my Nana's farm to visit for a weekend. For some context, she lives on a farm way back in the country right at the foot of a mountain in rural South Carolina. It's a very rural, secluded area, so the roads are badly maintained and barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass one another. The houses are also spread out and set far back into the tree line from the road, so there's very little ambient light besides a car's headlights. So, my mom and I are driving along, her in the driver's seat and me in the passenger. It was around 11 p.m. and we were 15 minutes out from Nana's, deep in the woods with the radio down almost to silent. We come onto this straight stretch of the road in a heavily wooded area, and suddenly this blur of a creature darts out across the road, right at the edge of our headlights. It was moving pretty well, but both me and my mom were able to get a good look at it and both agree on what we saw. It was a fairly large creature, roughly the size of a person/bigger. Neither of us could make out the head, but we both remember it appearing to have a segmented body, my mom's words, as if it were emaciated and its rib cage was poking out. The reflection of light made it hard for me to tell the color, but my mom said she remembered it to be dark and she didn't see fur/hair. It had long limbs, and as it moved across the road, it didn't run the way a dog or horse would, with all four legs. The best word to describe it would be loping, using its front limbs to pull itself along, and it was moving considerably fast. We both said something along the lines of,
"What the hell is that?"
as it crossed in front of us. As we got up to where it had crossed, I turned to look at it just as it reached the other side of the road and out of our headlights. And I swear on my life, it stood up and ran. Not like a dog rearing on its hind legs, it was definitely bipedal. I immediately yelled that it had stood up, and we both started getting nervous. I honestly would have thought I was going insane had I not had another person in the car with me. My mom has always been a pretty level-headed person and not superstitious, but she was very nervous and made me agree to not tell my Nana about it to avoid scaring her, which made me recognize how serious this was. I should also mention that there had apparently been a series of attacks on livestock/horses in the area around the time this happened. People were saying they found wire fences ripped through and their animals attacked. I don't think any died, but if I remember correctly, there were a few horses that were severely wounded. There have been a few other strange instances in the area, but that was my personal experience.
I woke up at 3 a.m. to intense banging on my walls. I've always believed in ghosts and all things paranormal, considering many minor encounters I've had as I grew up, but this one was the most daunting and chilling experience I've had so far. It happened maybe 2 years ago now, when I was around 15 or 16 years old. I was staying at my mom's, where me and the rest of my family occasionally had unexplained experiences. From witnessing objects moving on their own to our broken microwave turning on without any of our influence. Needless to say, we were all sure there had been a ghost in our house. Fast forward to the night of my experience, I woke up at 3 a.m. and sat up almost immediately to face my wall. Under normal circumstances, if I wake up at 3 a.m., I try to huddle under my blankets and fall back asleep. However, this time, almost half asleep, I aimlessly stared at the wall where my window had been. Even more strange, my 2 dogs were also silently facing and staring at the same wall. Suddenly, there was a loud banging against the wall, and I was frozen in fear. The banging seemed to last for a whole minute before ceasing. The strangest part is that my dogs, who bark at anything and everything, were silent the entire time, but it was so vivid I was sure I couldn't have imagined it. I was stunned and quickly got up and ran to my mom's room, crying and telling them someone was banging on my wall from the backyard, as I assumed was the case back then. They got up and checked the backyard, only to come back and report that nothing was there. I wondered how that could be. Still shaken, I called my 2 friends whom I was sure would still be awake at this hour. Sure enough, they were and answered my call. I told them what happened, and they mentioned that my sister, who was asleep in the room next to mine, called them a couple of hours earlier, explaining that she was hearing footsteps and knocking coming from an MY room. I was even more shaken after hearing this. For the rest of the night, after waking my sister up, we talked about what we heard and watched a movie to calm our nerves. The next morning, my mom, who has always been in touch with ghosts and spirits, said she also heard these noises and had nightmares all night. We found nothing to explain the loud banging, as it was not windy the entire night and everyone else was asleep. We've had only minor experiences since this experience, such as my unplugged PlayStation beeping on its own, seeing figures in the corner of our eyes, and unknown faces through cracks of doors. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it as spooky as I did.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.